The command deck of the U.S. Defiance hummed with a tension thicker than the recycled air that circulated through its aging systems. Captain Michael Thompson studied the holographic display, watching as the last remnants of human resistance flickered like dying embers against the overwhelming darkness of space. Red indicators marked the systematic destruction of their outer colonies, each pulse a silent scream of another world lost to the Zorn Collective. 12 individuals stood before him. Not soldiers in the traditional sense, but living weapons forged from humanity's most advanced genetic, cybernetic, and psychological enhancement programs. They represented the pinnacle of human potential, each a culmination of decades of desperate research and even more desperate hope. Jake Rodriguez stood at the front, his quantum neural interface casting a faint blue glow beneath the skin of his temples. Unlike traditional cybernetic implants, his modifications were seamless, organic, a perfect fusion of human biology and cutting-edge technology. His eyes, a striking combination of natural brown and microscopic computational arrays, scanned multiple data streams simultaneously. To his right, Emily Donovan stretched almost imperceptibly. Her muscular frame was a marvel of bioadaptive engineering, capable of reconfiguring cellular structures in milliseconds. Scars from previous missions traced her skin, not traditional wounds, but evidence of her body's extraordinary healing capabilities and multiple battlefield transformations. 12 minutes to contact, announced the ship's navigation system, its artificial voice devoid of the terror that gripped the human crew. Captain Thompson approached the group, his weathered face a map of humanity's long struggle. He had watched entire planetary systems fall, witnessed the systematic extermination of human colonies that had taken centuries to establish. The Zorn Collective was more than just an enemy. They were a force of galactic elimination, viewing individual life as an inefficient anomaly to be purged. "You understand the mission parameters," he said, his voice low and steady. It wasn't a question. Marcus Williams, the team's nano-engineer, nodded. His hands, more machine than flesh, flickered with microscopic computational waves. "Complete systems infiltration and cascading failure protocol," he confirmed. Unlike traditional military speak, his words were precise, almost mathematical. Sarah Williams, the psychological warfare specialist, stood slightly apart from the group. Her augmentations were less visible but potentially more dangerous. Where others carried physical weapons, she carried the capacity to deconstruct entire technological civilizations through pure informational warfare. The rest of the team represented humanity's most advanced capabilities. David Thompson, no relation to the captain, specialized in adaptive combat techniques. Olivia Chen, a biomechanical reconfiguration expert. Robert Garcia, quantum disruption specialist. Each was a weapon unto themselves, selected from millions of candidates through grueling physical, mental, and psychological screening. The Zorn believe collective consciousness is ultimate strength, Emily Donovan muttered, her voice a low growl. They've never understood individual potential. Jake Rodriguez's neural interfaces began to pulse, processing millions of potential infiltration scenarios per second. Their weakness is their strength, he responded, more a computational analysis than a human statement. Captain Thompson watched them with a mixture of pride and profound sadness. These 12 represented humanity's most advanced offspring, genetically and cybernetically enhanced individuals who barely resembled the humans of just 2 generations ago. They were humanity's last, most dangerous hope. The massive view screen showed the approaching Zorn fleet, a horrifying constellation of organic technological hybrid ships. Each vessel was larger than entire human cities, capable of consuming planetary resources in hours. Their technology was so advanced it bordered on the magical, a living network of consciousness that could adapt and reconfigure faster than any known species could comprehend. 12 minutes, the navigation system repeated. Probability of mission success, 0.00003%. A smile crossed Jake Rodriguez's enhanced features. Probabilities meant nothing to humans. They had always been the species that achieved the impossible. "We don't need high probabilities," Sarah Williams responded, her psychological warfare algorithms already beginning to construct informational weapons. "We only need a chance." As the U.S. Defiance approached the massive Zorn fleet, 12 extraordinary humans prepared to become humanity's ultimate statement. Not just soldiers, not just weapons, but a living, breathing testament to human potential. Individual, unpredictable, and utterly uncontrollable. The breach was silent, impossibly precise. Jake Rodriguez's quantum neural interface found microscopic weaknesses in the Zorn ship's defensive matrix. Computational whispers that most species would never detect. His fingers, augmented with nano-computational nodes, danced across an invisible interface, creating momentary gaps in the ship's sensory network. Emily Donovan moved first. Her body wasn't just enhanced. It was a living adaptive system that could reconfigure molecular structures faster than most computers could process a single command. She slipped through a microscopic seam in the ship's organic technological membrane, her skin changing color and texture to match the surrounding biomechanical surfaces. Penetration successful. She subvocalized, the words transmitted through her neural link to the team's shared communication network. Initial defensive layers compromised. Behind her, Marcus Williams followed. His hands were more machine than flesh, each finger a complex array of nanofabrication tools capable of rebuilding or dismantling entire mechanical systems with a thought. Where Emily moved like water, Marcus moved like precise machinery. Each step calculated, each movement a potential weapon. The Zorn ship was alive in a way no human vessel could ever be. Biological conduits pulse with alien biochemistry, technological systems intertwined with living tissue in complex networks that defied traditional understanding of machine and organism. Walls weren't simply constructed. They grew, adapted, responded to environmental changes with a form of intelligence that bordered on consciousness. Sarah Williams began her true work. Her psychological warfare algorithms were more than simple computational tools. They were designed to exploit the fundamental weakness of the Zorn's collective consciousness. Where most would see an impenetrable system, she saw a complex network of information flows, each connection a potential point of manipulation. "Their collective is their vulnerability," she whispered, her augmented mind parsing millions of informational pathways. "Individual consciousness is chaos. Chaos is our weapon." David Thompson moved differently from the others. His adaptive combat techniques weren't just about physical movement, but about reading and manipulating environmental systems. Each step was a potential combat action, his enhanced senses detecting microscopic changes in atmospheric pressure, electromagnetic fluctuations, even subtle shifts in the ship's internal biochemical rhythms. Olivia Chen worked silently, her biomechanical expertise finding the intricate connections between the ship's biological and technological systems. Where others saw a massive vessel, she saw a complex organism with vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. Her fingers traced invisible lines of potential system failures, mapping out cascading breakdown scenarios. Initial infiltration complete, Jake Rodriguez reported. His neural interfaces were now fully integrated with the ship's communication networks, creating microscopic bridges that would allow their informational weapons to spread like a cancer through the Zorn's collective systems. The ship around them was alive, but not in any way humans traditionally understood life. It was a massive, interconnected organism that viewed individuality as a fundamental weakness. Each system was designed to support the collective, to eliminate any potential for independent action or thought. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to teach the Zorn the true power of individual potential. Robert Garcia began deploying quantum disruption devices. These weren't traditional weapons, but complex informational instruments designed to create cascading system failures. Each device was a mathematical weapon, capable of introducing fundamental uncertainties into the most rigid of technological networks. Insertion points identified, he subvocalized. Preparing quantum cascade. The team moved deeper into the ship's core. Each step was a calculated risk, each moment a potential discovery. But they had been trained for this, not just as soldiers, but as the most advanced human weapons ever conceived. Emily Donovan's body continued to adapt, her cellular structure shifting to match the surrounding biomechanical environment. To the ship's sensory systems, she was becoming indistinguishable from the vessel's own internal structures. A perfect infiltrator, a living weapon designed to exploit every possible vulnerability. Marcus Williams began to plant microscopic devices, not traditional explosive charges, but complex informational nodes that would serve as the first dominoes in a catastrophic chain reaction. Each device was a potential system failure, a mathematical weapon designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses of the Zorn's collective technological infrastructure. 12 minutes into their mission, they had transformed from an infiltration team to something far more dangerous. They were a living, breathing virus, individual human potential weaponized against a collective that had never understood the true power of individual creativity and adaptability. The Zorn ship had no idea what was coming. The core of the Zorn ship pulsed with an alien rhythm, a complex network of biological and technological systems that defied human comprehension. Sarah Williams stood at the epicenter of this massive informational organism, her mind a weapon more dangerous than any physical instrument. Her psychological warfare algorithms were living things, complex computational structures that could adapt, learn, and exploit the most fundamental weaknesses of the Zorn's collective consciousness. Where most saw an impenetrable system, Sarah saw an intricate tapestry of information flows, each connection a potential point of critical failure. "Collective consciousness is a lie," she muttered, her neural implants spinning complex mathematical models that would challenge the very foundation of the Zorn's existential understanding. Each line of code was more than just a computer command. It was a philosophical argument, a razor-sharp critique of the Zorn's rigid technological philosophy. Jake Rodriguez's quantum neural interface began to resonate with the ship's internal systems. His augmented mind could perceive computational realities that existed between traditional binary states, quantum possibilities that most species couldn't even conceptualize. He was finding the microscopic uncertainties, the fundamental quantum fluctuations that existed beneath the Zorn's seemingly perfect technological infrastructure. "Their collective is an illusion of control," Jake transmitted through their neural network. "Every collective system has inherent points of potential individual emergence." Marcus Williams approached a massive biological computational junction. His nanoengineering capabilities allowed him to see the ship as a living system, not just a vessel, but a complex organism with interconnected vulnerabilities. Each of his augmented fingers could reconfigure molecular structures, introducing microscopic disruptions that would cascade through the entire system. Olivia Chen worked simultaneously, her biomechanical expertise mapping the intricate connections between biological and technological systems. She wasn't just analyzing the ship. She was understanding its fundamental nature, finding the precise points where individual intervention could cause maximum systemic damage. "The Zorn believe uniformity is strength," she observed, her voice a clinical analysis. "But uniformity is actually the greatest weakness in any complex system." David Thompson moved with predatory precision, his adaptive combat techniques allowing him to read the environmental systems with superhuman accuracy. Every movement was a potential weapon, every breath a calculated interaction with the ship's internal networks. Sarah Williams began to construct her most dangerous weapon, an informational virus that was more than just code. It was a philosophical attack designed to introduce the concept of individual potential into the Zorn's collective consciousness. The virus wasn't about destruction, it was about creating doubt. Each computational strand was carefully crafted to challenge the fundamental assumptions of collective thinking. Mathematical models that demonstrated the superiority of individual innovation. Quantum probability scenarios that showed how individual creativity could overcome collective rigidity. Jake Rodriguez's quantum interface began to resonate at frequencies that would be invisible to most computational systems. He was creating quantum uncertainty, introducing fundamental mathematical challenges to the Zorn's supposedly perfect collective network. Their system can't tolerate true randomness, he transmitted. Collective consciousness requires predictability. Individual potential is the ultimate source of unpredictability. Robert Garcia deployed quantum disruption devices that were more like information grenades. Each device introduced complex mathematical uncertainties, creating computational scenarios that the Zorn's collective systems couldn't easily process or predict. The ship around them began to react, not with traditional defensive mechanisms, but with a kind of systemic uncertainty. Biological pathways began to fluctuate. Technological systems started to show microscopic inconsistencies. Sarah Williams smiled. They were introducing the most dangerous weapon in the universe, the concept of individual potential. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to be unpredictable, she said, her psychological warfare algorithms spinning complex informational weapons. The Zorn see this as a weakness. We'll show them it's our ultimate power. Marcus Williams continued to plant microscopic disruption nodes. Each device was a potential system failure, a mathematical weapon designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses of a collective technological infrastructure that had never conceived of true individual creativity. Deep within the ship's core, they were doing more than just preparing for an attack. They were challenging an entire philosophical system, introducing a virus of individual potential that would spread faster than any traditional weapon. The Zorn had no idea what was coming. The ship began to react in ways no technological system should. Alarms that were more feeling than sound pulsed through its massive organic technological infrastructure. David Thompson moved like liquid mercury, his adaptive combat techniques turning the ship's own defensive mechanisms against itself. Each of his movements was a calculated disruption. Where most soldiers would see a defensive system, David saw a complex network of potential failure points. His enhanced muscles could generate micro-vibrations that resonated at frequencies designed to create systemic instability. Biological membranes began to ripple, technological conduits started to twist in impossible patterns. Defensive systems are becoming reactive, he subvocalized to the team. They're losing predictive capabilities. Olivia Chen worked in perfect synchronization, her biomechanical expertise finding the most intricate connections within the ship's systems. Her fingers traced invisible lines of molecular weakness, creating cascading breakdown scenarios that would have been impossible for any other species to conceive. Collective systems have a fundamental flaw, she explained, her voice clinical and precise. They prioritize group stability over individual adaptation. We're exploiting that weakness at a molecular level. Jake Rodriguez's quantum neural interface began to dance across the ship's communication networks. He wasn't just hacking. He was introducing fundamental mathematical uncertainties that challenged the very foundation of the Zorn's technological consciousness. Each computational pathway became a potential point of critical failure. Sarah Williams launched her most insidious weapon, a psychological virus designed to create doubt within the collective consciousness. It wasn't about destruction, but about introducing the concept of individual potential into a system that had never conceived of personal agency. Marcus Williams deployed nanofabrication devices that were more like informational grenades. Each microscopic tool began to reconfigure the ship's internal systems, creating localized areas of computational chaos. Biological pathways twisted, technological conduits began to pulse with uncertain rhythms. Collective consciousness requires absolute predictability, Marcus observed. Individual potential is the ultimate source of unpredictability. Robert Garcia's quantum disruption devices began to resonate at frequencies that challenged the ship's fundamental computational foundations. These weren't traditional weapons, but complex mathematical instruments designed to introduce systemic uncertainty. Emily Donovan's body continued to adapt, her cellular structure becoming a living weapon. She could reconfigure her molecular structure faster than most computer systems could process a single command. Where she moved, biological systems began to break down, losing their rigid collective structure. They'd never understood individual potential. she muttered, her body shifting and changing with each step. The ship around them was becoming something else. No longer a perfect collective organism, it was transforming into a system of increasing uncertainty and individual breakdown. Technological pathways that once moved with perfect synchronization now pulsed with erratic, unpredictable rhythms. David Thompson found himself moving through sections of the ship that were literally changing around him. Walls became fluid, computational pathways twisted in impossible geometries. The Zorn's collective system was losing its fundamental ability to maintain cohesion. "We're introducing a virus of individual potential," Sarah Williams transmitted. Her psychological warfare algorithms were spinning complex scenarios that challenged the very foundation of collective consciousness. Each computational strand was a philosophical argument against rigid systemic thinking. Jake Rodriguez's quantum interface detected the first major systemic failures. Entire sections of the ship began to lose coherence, biological and technological systems starting to break down at a fundamental level. "Individual creativity is the most dangerous weapon in the universe," he observed, watching as the ship's collective systems began to fragment. Olivia Chen mapped the cascading failure points, her biomechanical expertise allowing her to see the intricate ways their intervention was destroying the ship's fundamental infrastructure. What had once been a perfect collective organism was becoming a system of increasing uncertainty and individual breakdown. Marcus Williams continued to plant microscopic disruption nodes. Each device was a potential system failure, a mathematical weapon designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses of a collective technological infrastructure that had never conceived of true individual creativity. The ship was dying, but it wasn't being destroyed by traditional weapons. It was being dismantled by the most dangerous concept in the universe, the power of individual potential. The Zorn had no idea what was coming. Millions of Zorn ships hung in the vast darkness of space, an intricate network of technological and biological systems that had once seemed invincible. Now they began to die. The collapse was not a traditional destruction. It was a systematic unraveling that defied every known principle of warfare. Sarah Williams watched through her neural interface as the first wave of systemic failures began to spread, her psychological warfare algorithms creating a cascade of informational warfare that was more devastating than any physical weapon. "Collective systems have an inherent vulnerability," she transmitted to the team. "Once individual uncertainty is introduced, the entire network becomes unstable." Jake Rodriguez's quantum computational interface mapped the spreading disruption. What had begun as a precise infiltration was transforming into a galaxy-wide systemic collapse. Each quantum uncertainty they had introduced was multiplying, creating computational scenarios that the Zorn collective could not predict or contain. "Their greatest strength is becoming their ultimate weakness," Jake observed. His neural augmentations could see the computational pathways breaking down, entire sections of the massive fleet losing coherence at a fundamental level. Emily Donovan's body continued to adapt, her cellular structure becoming a living transmission vector for their informational attack. Where she had once moved through a single ship, her molecular adaptations were now creating microscopic disruption points across multiple vessels. Marcus Williams deployed advanced nanofabrication technologies that were more like living weapons. Each microscopic device was a potential system failure, capable of replicating and spreading through the Zorn's interconnected networks. They weren't just destroying ships, they were introducing a fundamental philosophical challenge to the entire Zorn civilization. "Uniformity is not strength," Marcus transmitted. "Adaptability is the true measure of survival." Olivia Chen mapped the cascading failure points with clinical precision. Her biomechanical expertise allowed her to see the intricate ways their intervention was destroying the Zorn's fundamental infrastructure. Entire fleets were losing their ability to communicate, to coordinate, to exist as a collective system. David Thompson's adaptive combat techniques were now operating on a galactic scale. His ability to read and manipulate environmental systems had transformed from an individual skill to a weapon that could dismantle entire technological civilizations. Robert Garcia's quantum disruption devices continued to resonate at frequencies that challenged the most fundamental computational foundations. These were not traditional weapons, but complex mathematical instruments designed to introduce systemic uncertainty on an unprecedented scale. The first Zorn ships began to simply cease functioning, not destroyed by traditional weapons, but unraveled by their own collective nature. Technological pathways that once moved with perfect synchronization now pulsed with erratic, unpredictable rhythms. Individual potential is breaking their entire system, Sarah Williams observed. Her psychological warfare algorithms were spinning complex scenarios that challenged the very foundation of collective consciousness. Each computational strand was a philosophical argument against rigid systemic thinking. Millions of ships hung in space, their once perfect collective systems now breaking down. The Zorn had built a civilization on the principle that collective consciousness was the ultimate form of existence. Humanity was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. Jake Rodriguez detected the exponential spread of their informational attack. What had begun as a precise infiltration was now a galaxy-wide systemic collapse. The quantum uncertainties they had introduced were multiplying faster than the Zorn could comprehend. "We're not just destroying ships," he transmitted. "We're challenging an entire philosophical system." Emily Donovan's adaptive body continued to be a living transmission vector. Her cellular structure could reconfigure faster than most computer systems could process a single command. Where she moved, entire sections of the Zorn fleet began to lose coherence. Marcus Williams planted microscopic disruption nodes across multiple vessel networks. Each device was a potential system failure, a mathematical weapon designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses of a collective technological infrastructure that had never conceived of true individual creativity. The multiplier effect was beyond anything the Zorn could have predicted. Their entire civilization was built on the premise that collective consciousness was the ultimate form of technological and biological integration. Humanity was about to demonstrate the fatal flaw in that belief. Millions of ships began to die, not through traditional warfare, but through the most dangerous weapon in the universe, the power of individual potential. The Zorn had no idea what was coming. The team knew they would not survive. Each of the 12 understood that their mission was always meant to be a one-way journey. Their augmentations, their entire existence, had been designed for this moment, to become living weapons that would save humanity. Captain Michael Thompson watched from the distant human fleet, his hands gripping the command console with an intensity that threatened to crush the advanced molecular interface. Each of the 12 was more than just a soldier. They were humanity's most advanced creation, walking weapons designed to challenge an entire alien civilization's fundamental understanding of existence. Emily Donovan was the first to initiate her final protocol. Her body, already a marvel of genetic and cybernetic engineering, began to transform. Cellular structures started to reconfigure, each molecule becoming a potential weapon. She wasn't just dying. She was becoming a living computational bomb that would continue to spread their informational attack even after her physical form ceased to exist. "Individual potential is our legacy," she transmitted to the team, her voice a mixture of computational precision and human determination. Jake Rodriguez's quantum neural interface began to resonate at frequencies that would continue to challenge the Zorn's collective systems long after his physical form was gone. His mind was becoming a living weapon, a computational algorithm that would continue to introduce uncertainty into the alien network. Sarah Williams prepared her most insidious psychological warfare protocol. Her algorithms were more than just computer code. They were a philosophical argument against collective consciousness, a living transmission that would continue to challenge the Zorn's fundamental belief systems. "We're not just dying," she transmitted. "We're becoming a permanent challenge to their entire civilization." Marcus Williams deployed his nanofabrication capabilities in their most extreme configuration. His body began to break down into microscopic computational nodes, each capable of continuing the systemic attack. Where most would see a final moment, he saw an opportunity for continued disruption. David Thompson's adaptive combat techniques were transforming into a living weapon system. His muscles, his nervous system, his entire being was reconfiguring to become a continuous point of systemic failure for the Zorn Collective. Olivia Chen's biomechanical expertise reached its ultimate expression. Her body was becoming a living transmission vector, capable of continuing their informational attack at a molecular level. She wasn't just dying. She was transforming into a permanent challenge to the Zorn's technological infrastructure. Robert Garcia's quantum disruption devices reached their final configuration. No longer just external weapons, they were now integrated into his very being. Each cell of his body was becoming a potential point of computational uncertainty. The ship around them was dying, but they were becoming something more. Not just soldiers, not just weapons, but a living statement about the power of individual potential. 12 lives, Jake Rodriguez transmitted, against millions of ships. Captain Thompson watched as the 12 began their final transformation. Each of them was becoming more than just a soldier. They were becoming a permanent challenge to an entire alien civilization's understanding of existence. Emily Donovan's body continued to reconfigure. Her cellular structure was breaking down into microscopic computational nodes, each capable of continuing their informational attack. She was becoming a living weapon that would continue to challenge the Zorn's collective systems. Sarah Williams' psychological warfare algorithms reached their ultimate configuration. Her mind was transforming into a living transmission that would continue to introduce doubt and uncertainty into the Zorn's collective consciousness. Marcus Williams' nanofabrication capabilities reached their final state. His body was breaking down into microscopic devices that would continue to spread their systemic attack across the alien fleet. David Thompson's adaptive capabilities were transforming him into a continuous point of systemic failure. His very existence was becoming a weapon against the Zorn's collective infrastructure. Olivia Chen's biomechanical expertise reached its ultimate expression. She was becoming a living transmission vector, capable of continuing their informational attack at a molecular level. Robert Garcia's quantum disruption capabilities were integrated into his entire being. Each cell was becoming a potential point of computational uncertainty. They knew they would not survive. But survival was never the point. "We are humanity's" statement, Jake Rodriguez transmitted in their final moments. Individual potential is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The 12 began to dissolve, becoming something more than human, becoming a permanent challenge to an entire alien civilization's understanding of existence. 12 lives, millions of ships, the ultimate sacrifice. The silence of space erupted with the ghosts of millions of Zorn ships. What had seemed like an impossible mission became the most significant moment in human history. Recovered data streams began to flood human communication networks, revealing the full extent of the 12's extraordinary intervention. Captain Michael Thompson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance, watching as entire sections of the galactic map transformed before his eyes. The Zorn Collective, once a seemingly invincible force of galactic elimination, had been reduced to computational echoes and fractured system remnants. Analyzing recovered data streams, the ship's primary computational system announced. Its voice carried a hint of something new, a sense of awe that bordered on reverence. The first reports began to compile. 12 human lives had systematically dismantled a technological civilization that had conquered entire galactic sectors, not through traditional warfare, but through the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever developed: individual potential. Research teams worked frantically to understand the full implications of the recovered data. Dr. Elizabeth Rodriguez, no relation to Jake Rodriguez, led the primary analysis team. Her quantum computational interfaces worked overtime, parsing through the massive amounts of information left behind by the 12's final mission. "It's more than just a military victory," she transmitted during an emergency conference. "This is a fundamental philosophical challenge to collective systems of existence." Fragments of the 12's final transmissions became legendary. Jake Rodriguez's quantum computational notes revealed complex mathematical models that challenged the very foundation of collective consciousness. Sarah Williams' psychological warfare algorithms were being studied as a new form of philosophical warfare. The recovered data showed something unprecedented. The 12 had not just destroyed the Zorn Collective, they had fundamentally challenged its entire existential framework. Each piece of recovered information was a razor-sharp argument against rigid systemic thinking. Military strategists struggled to comprehend the full scope of what had occurred. Marcus Williams' nanofabrication research revealed computational techniques that would revolutionize human technological understanding. David Thompson's adaptive combat algorithms were being studied as a new form of systemic intervention. Individual potential is our greatest weapon became the new mantra of human scientific and military research. Olivia Chen's biomechanical research notes showed techniques of molecular reconfiguration that would transform human understanding of biological and technological integration. Robert Garcia's quantum disruption models became the foundation of an entirely new field of computational warfare. The 12 were more than just soldiers. They had become symbols of human potential, proof that individual creativity could overcome the most advanced collective systems in the universe. Recovered transmissions from their final moments became required studying for every human military and scientific academy. Each fragment was a testament to human innovation, individual potential, and the power of creative thinking. 12 lives. Jake Rodriguez's final transmission read, against millions of ships. The human colonies, which had been on the brink of total elimination, now found themselves in a fundamentally transformed universe. The Zorn Collective's threat had been completely neutralized, but more importantly, humanity had proven something far more significant. Individual potential was the most powerful force in the universe. Political leaders struggled to comprehend the full implications. Military strategists rewrote entire doctrines of engagement. Scientific research teams began exploring the computational and philosophical models left behind by the 12. Emily Donovan's cellular reconfiguration techniques were studied as a new form of adaptive biology. Her research notes revealed methods of human enhancement that would transform understanding of genetic and cybernetic potential. The recovered data was more than just a military victory. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of existence, consciousness, and potential. We are not defined by our collective, Sarah Williams' final psychological warfare transmission read, but by the extraordinary potential of our individuals. Captain Thompson watched as new star charts were drawn. The galactic map had been fundamentally rewritten by 12 extraordinary individuals who had been willing to sacrifice everything to save humanity. 12 lives, millions of ships, an entire alien civilization brought to its knees by the most dangerous weapon in the universe, human potential. The aftermath was more than just a military victory. It was a fundamental redefinition of what it meant to be human. The recovered message from Captain Rodriguez became more than just a historical document. It was a manifesto, a philosophical declaration that would reshape human understanding of potential, existence, and collective purpose. We are not defined by our limitations, the message began, but by our capacity to challenge them. Humanity emerged from the conflict transformed. The 12 soldiers became more than just martyrs or heroes. They were living proof of what human potential could achieve when individual creativity was unleashed without restraint. Research academies across human-controlled space began to fundamentally restructure their approaches to education, military strategy, and scientific exploration. The old models of collective thinking were dismantled, replaced by systems that celebrated individual innovation and adaptive potential. Dr. Elizabeth Rodriguez, the lead researcher analyzing the 12's mission data, stood before the Global Scientific Council, presenting findings that would reshape human civilization. The Zorn Collective believed that uniformity was strength, she explained, her quantum computational interface projecting complex holographic models. We've proven that individual potential is the most powerful force in the universe. Military academies transformed their training protocols. No longer were soldiers viewed as interchangeable units, but as unique individuals with extraordinary potential. The 12 had demonstrated that a single human mind, when pushed to its absolute limits, could challenge entire civilizations. Jake Rodriguez's quantum computational models became the foundation of a new approach to technological development. His final research notes revealed computational techniques that could introduce controlled uncertainty into rigid systems, a revolutionary approach that challenged every existing understanding of technological integration. Sarah Williams' psychological warfare research gave birth to entirely new fields of study. Her algorithms became the basis for understanding how individual creativity could challenge and dismantle even the most complex collective systems. Marcus Williams' nanofabrication techniques revolutionized human technological capabilities. His final research showed methods of creating adaptive systems that could respond to challenges in ways no previous technology had ever conceived. Emily Donovan's cellular reconfiguration research opened new frontiers of human enhancement. Her work suggested that human potential was not just a philosophical concept, but a biological reality that could be systematically developed and expanded. The recovered transmission archives became required studying for every human academic institution. Each fragment was a testament to the power of individual potential, a philosophical argument against rigid systemic thinking. We chose this path, Jake Rodriguez's final transmission read, to prove that individual creativity is humanity's most powerful weapon. Human colonies that had been on the brink of total elimination now found themselves in a fundamentally transformed universe. The threat of collective technological civilizations had been neutralized, but more importantly, humanity had proven something far more significant. Individual potential was not just a concept. It was the most powerful force in existence. Political systems began to transform. Centralized bureaucracies were dismantled, replaced by systems that celebrated individual innovation and adaptive potential. The 12 had proven that true strength came from empowering individual creativity, not suppressing it. Scientific research teams explored the computational and philosophical models left behind by the 12. Each recovered fragment was studied as a potential key to understanding human potential. David Thompson's adaptive combat research revealed new approaches to problem-solving that went far beyond military applications. His techniques showed how individual adaptability could be the most powerful response to complex challenges. Olivia Chen's biomechanical research opened new frontiers of human enhancement. Her work suggested that human potential could be systematically developed, that individual capabilities could be expanded beyond previous understanding. Robert Garcia's quantum disruption models became the foundation of new computational approaches. His research showed how introducing controlled uncertainty could be a powerful tool for innovation and problem-solving. The message from Captain Rodriguez became a foundational text for human civilization. We are not defined by our collective, it read, but by the extraordinary potential of our individuals. Space exploration programs were redesigned. No longer were missions conceived as collective endeavors, but as opportunities for individual innovation and extraordinary achievement. 12 lives had rewritten the fundamental understanding of human potential. Millions of alien ships had been neutralized. An entire civilization had been challenged at its most fundamental level. The universe would never be the same. Humanity had discovered its true strength.